Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to another Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building the world of Willow Creek, which is one of the base game worlds, and I'm going to be building two small realistic houses but on one lot. So this lot ends up having two separate units or two separate houses. I wouldn't say family homes. We have one family home because I designed it to be for a family of 4 members, but then the second house ends up being actually for a single sim, which I never seem to do, which is weird and kind of funny because whenever I seem to play the game myself, I'm also like to focus on a single sim rather than having a massive legacy family because they just get a little bit chaotic sometimes. But yeah, no, there ends up being one family home and then one single sim home. But on this lot itself, one of the houses ends up having 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. It's the house that I'm building right now, and it also ends up having a basement, which I'm so excited for the basement because when I was building this house, I had such an in-depth storyline kind of like planned out for these sims and their careers and their skills and their hobbies and stuff, and a lot of it ends up being in the little basement room. But then the second house on this lot, that ends up having 1 bedroom and 1.5 bathrooms. I imagine there used to be a second bedroom, but now where a single sim lives there, they've transformed it into kind of like a little home office cozy hobby space, and altogether it is built on this 30 by 20 lot. Now for this week's build, it's actually a little bit of a funny one because the whole idea of how this build started was I didn't know what the build was really going to look like. I just kind of had an in-depth storyline to base it off because recently I've been doing a lot of work on my save file, both making houses but then also doing things like townie makeovers, creating new families, editing the world itself using the tool mod, and I've just been getting really good progress, I feel like, with my save file, and I'm just getting so excited about everything to do with it. And I was focusing recently on this neighbourhood in Willow Creek, which by default is called Fondery Cove. I always just refer to it in my head as the starter neighbourhood. I don't ever call it Fondery Cove, but I was thinking about all the different sims and all the different types of characters in a way that I wanted your sims to interact with in my save if they ever did live here. And I basically came into this build with such an in-depth storyline for 2 different households, and I'm just so excited for the way that both of their houses came out and just everything about them. They are so different on the inside. This one over here ends up being, I want to say, a bit exotic, kind of. You'll see what I mean. They've got a vibrating bed. You know the Lovestruck expansion pack? We've got the return of the vibrating woohoo bed. This Sims family, they've got it in their bedroom and they've got it in the leopard print. But I tried to make the leopard print actually look good because by default, it's not my top 10 favourite beds to use. But yeah, they're very out there, put it that way, but they're such interesting characters and I'm so excited to tell you about it. But then the second build ends up being for, or like the second house in this build ends up being for a completely different sim who, she's got a lot to unpack and she's currently healing, but we'll talk about it. And just, I'm just so excited to sit down and just yap about these builds and just the sims that I imagine living in them. And so yeah, I really hope you like the way that this build came together and the way it turned out. But either way, moving over and getting on and actually talking a little bit more about the build itself. So as you can see, I'm coming in now. I'm pretty much just finishing up the front section of the house that I'm going to call house number 1. Well, I mean, I say that, it's not actually called that in the game, it's the first house that I built. But over here, as you can see, I've already done a little bit of landscaping and I just finished it up by placing down some clumps of grass around this chain link fence. I also did place down these posts by the staircase, which them posts, if you're curious, I don't think I've ever used them before, but they are from the high school years expansion pack, and I just thought it looked really nice having one bigger one and then one smaller one in front of it and kind of like have it elevated down into the ground. Don't know what it is, but it just felt a little bit more realistic in a way. I feel like that's something that you might see around a staircase leading up to a front porch or something. But if you have seen any of my previous videos where I've built in this particular neighbourhood before, you might be aware of the approach that I'm having to this certain neighbourhood in this world, which is I want the houses to look a little bit more budget friendly, but then also just at the end of the day realistic. Because like I said, I'm building in, the official name is Fondery Cove, but I always refer to it as a starter neighbourhood because whenever I enter a brand new save file, a lot of the time my Sims end up living here because by default I believe there's 2 different houses that are like move in ready. Your Sims can move in, they've got a kitchen, they've got a bed, they've got a sofa, and they're within the starting budget. And so for my save file, I want to keep this neighbourhood so there's going to be at least 1 starter home. I'm thinking 1 single Sim starter home and then potentially 1 family starter home for like maybe 3 family members or something. I'm not too sure, we'll get to that when we get to that. But where it is meant to be kind of like the starting out point for your Sims, I want your Sims neighbours to kind of reflect on that, because the way that I see it and the way that I think about it is, if I've just bought my first house, I've put down a 10% deposit, I'm not going to move next door to Bill Gates. You know, I'm not going to move next door to someone that's got a really big fancy house with like a perfect manicured garden. They're not going to be like CEOs or something. It's just going to be regular people. It's just going to be regular people with regular jobs, regardless of what the job is. But, you know, I'm not going to live next door to a millionaire if I'm just starting out and, you know, I'm just finding my bearings. And so the way that I've kind of approached this particular neighbourhood in my save file is kind of like that. It's just a nice little spot that your Sims can move into, and all their neighbours, they're just regular people. They've got regular jobs. They ain't got a ton of money. They've got a mortgage to pay off every single month, but they're just really nice Sims for your Sims to interact with. And so when it comes around to building their houses, yeah, I don't want to build like these really big, like massive mansions and then your Sim living like a little small starter home. And so the approach to the houses is to make them feel small, homey, and a little bit more budget friendly. And honestly, doing builds like this is one of my favourite things to build in the game, because don't get me wrong, I love building big houses. Like, I love building big structures and just furnishing them, and just I love going to town and building like massive mansions. But I also just really enjoy just sitting down and just building like nice little cutesy either family homes or, you know, in this case, a single Sim house. The single Sim house, I'm so happy the way it turned out, because I'm not going to lie, going into it, I was a little bit worried in terms of the furnishing, because the idea that I've got for house number 2, which you can see at this point, I've already like built the structure for it. I'm just coming in now and figuring out kind of like the front terrain paint for both the houses and how they're going to join up. But going into house number 2, the idea that I had was an older lady used to live there, bless her heart, she passed away, and so her house then recently went up for sale and someone moved in there, but it still had the old farty wallpaper from the previous owner. And so I went into that build a little bit worried and a little bit intimidated, because I had this fancy wallpaper that was a little bit, I'm going to use the term past its sell by date, hopefully you get what I mean. But yeah, I was just a little bit worried of how it's going to turn out, because I imagine that this younger Sim lives here, but the wallpaper doesn't really reflect on her own personal decorations. And I wanted to try and give the impression from like the get-go that this Sim, the furniture ain't matching the wallpaper. What's the reason for that? And the reason is because, you know, a little old lady moved in there and a younger Sim has moved in there and she hasn't decorated yet. And I'll get on and tell you why she hasn't decorated yet, because again, like I said, I've got such an in-depth storyline for this Sim. But to start off with, I want to talk about the storyline for the Sims that are going to be living in house number 1, which is this one over here. Now, like I said, this one is going to be the family home out of the 2 houses, and the storyline that I've got for the Sims that live in this house are a little bit far from the typical like happy family storyline kind of idea. Don't get me wrong, they are happy, but it's a little bit of a bizarre storyline. So, like I already said, kind of, we have 4 household members living in this house. The household members consist of a mum, a dad, and 2 twin infants. I'm personally thinking a boy and a girl infant, or maybe 2 boys, but I'm still a little bit undecided. But basically, the idea that I've got is these Sims initially didn't really want to have kids. They didn't actually plan to have kids, but they're a little bit daredevilish, take from that what you will, and they accidentally fell pregnant. Now, I imagine it's a scenario of they never really sat down together and spoke about starting a family. You know, they never really had that discussion. The idea that I had for them in my head is they probably met through friends of friends, or maybe like a friendship group thing. Maybe they were in similar-ish circles. They got on really well, and then they just ended up moving in together. I imagine that one of the parents owned the house and the other one doesn't, but they just kind of, you know, one day bought a suitcase and then just never went back to their apartment or whatever. But yeah, they ended up just staying together, and they're not married, by the way. One of them's married to someone else. I'll tell you about that shortly. But yeah, they're just 2 Sims that are quite exotic. having a family really wasn't on the cards for them, but they fell pregnant. Probably realised when they actually got pregnant that, you know, hang on, we could actually give this a go. I don't think about leaving you anytime soon. Do you think about leaving me anytime soon? Other one probably said no. I'm hoping that they said no anyway, because it goes with my storyline. But then, yeah, they stayed together, and now they've got 2 infants. I imagine their infants are an absolute handful, and they really struggled to keep on top of it. And both of them have such different personal lives, and they've got so many different hobbies and skills outside of their relationship and their family life, and they probably cope not the best with trying to deal with it all. But yeah, I love this idea and the concept for this family. But starting off with the mum for this household. Now, the mum I was picturing to be a little bit older than the dad of his household. I just had this idea in my head that she was maybe a few years older, and maybe it's like something whenever they get into an argument, she will always bite back with, oh, it's because you're, I don't know, 29 or something, and she's maybe like, I don't know, 33 or 34, like not too older, but she's a little bit older than the dad of this household. But I was imagining that the mum would be a really good fit if we had, you know, like a nail technician, or potentially a masseuse, someone that kind of gives spa treatments in the game. If your Sims could actually actively have that job, I would give it to this sim, but I don't think we can actually do that in the game. And so instead of that, I think, and I know it's going to be a complete 180, but I think I'm going to give them a job in the medical career. Now, I know you're probably thinking, complete different change of direction. That was a complete, not even a 180, that was like a 360. Like, what? How did you get from nail technician to someone that's like a doctor? When I say medical career, I don't actually mean like they're going to be a full-on, you know, art surgeon or brain surgeon or something. I'm just thinking, if it was the UK, she'd work for the NHS. Like, she would just be someone that would, you know, just have a regular job in medical care. Because the thing is, there are so many different hospital jobs, nurse jobs in medical, when you don't end up having, you know, brain surgery scheduled for you Tuesday. Like, not every single person that works in medical ends up being an open heart surgeon. Some people just work in medical. Do you know what I mean? And so I think for my save file, I'm going to make it so she is in the medical career, but she's not going to become a heart surgeon. I mean, maybe if you want that for her, you can give that to her. But I'm just picturing, she just goes to work in her little scrubs. She gets on really nice with all the ladies there. She has a nice little chit chat. Spends half the day in the break room. But yeah, it's just a really nice job for this sim. And the reason why I decided to give her the nurse job is because I imagine that she's almost like the neighbourhood mum in a way. Even though in this neighbourhood already in my save file, there is a few other families, and like there is actually other mums here. I imagine that if anyone ever has any sort of problem, if anyone ever needs anything bandaged up, she's like, come around my house, I've got all the stuff in my bathroom cabinet, I'll help you. She's just a nice sim, that kind of way. I imagine both her and her partner are sims that will look out for everyone and will also have anyone's back. And I just thought, for my save file, when you move into a little starter home in this neighbourhood, it would just be really nice to have neighbours that kind of look out for you in that way. And so yeah, so I decided to give her the job in the medical career. Now, I'm not sure if you would have picked up on it, because I don't know if you've ever watched it, but a lot of the influence that I got for this particular Sims family was, if you've ever seen the show, you know, Shameless, the US version. I've never seen the UK version. I didn't even know there was a UK version until after I watched the US version. But in Shameless, the US version, don't worry if you haven't seen it, but there is 2 characters and their neighbours to kind of like the main family, and they're called V and Kev. And I was basically picturing both the mum and the dad of this household to be exactly like them. And so when it came around to decorating their house, I basically had the approach of, how would Kev and V decorate their house in The Sims 4? And like I said, if you've not seen it, I imagine something along this way. But basically in the show, The Shameless, they are just people that will look out for their neighbours no matter what. If anything goes down, they've got your back. They don't care what time it is, they will help you out. And so that's the kind of people that I imagine that these family are. But moving over and actually talking about the storyline for the dad of this household. Now, I think I'm going to make it so he's going to be in like a restaurant career. Maybe he's like a dishwasher or something. You know, the base game culinary career. I always really struggle to say that word, but you know that base game career where your Sims can eventually work up to be a chef. I'm going to make it so he's maybe like level 4 of that. Maybe just washes dishes and maybe waits the odd table here and there. But eventually his dream is to open up a tattoo parlour. Now currently, as I'm sitting here talking to you, on a Friday evening, 21st of February, we do not have tattoo parlours in the game. However, in the next few weeks, I think it's March 6th off memory, we're getting the Sims 4 Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack, which is the next DLC for the game. And in this DLC, your Sims can own their own small business, regardless of what it is. Let me tell you, I have got so many different ideas and I'm so excited about it. But your Sims can own all these different businesses. One of them, and one of the new skills that is coming with this EP, is your Sims going to either have a pottery business or a tattoo parlour, and there's going to be a new tattooing skill. Now, you know I said that this house ends up having a basement, and I kind of decorated the basement geared towards the Sims' interests and skills and just things that they like to do in their personal life. Basically, I transformed the basement in this house into a current makeshift pretend tattoo parlour, because the thing is, I watched the trailer for the Sims 4 Businesses and Hobbies DLC, but it was like the game pack trailer. It came out earlier this week, and in that trailer we got kind of like a bigger grasp of all the different things that we're actually getting gameplay wise. And I kind of noticed that the new tattoo chair, where your Sims would be able to either tattoo other people or practice their tattooing skill on, kind of looks the same shape and size. The little massage tables from the Spa Day game pack look similar to that. And so in the basement I've kind of done a temporary tattoo studio situation, just using things that we've already got in the game. Like the expansion pack doesn't come out for like 2 weeks or something now, but I've basically placed them down to eventually, when I actually get my hands on the pack, I'm going to replace them with the actual tattooing items. And I mean, I'm actually really impressed with the way it turned out. We've surprisingly got a lot of stuff in the game that could pass off as belonging in a tattoo parlour. But yeah, I left plenty of space just in case I did get the spacing wrong for the massage chair. If you want to, like I said, this household, they're quite exotic. They've got a vibrating bed upstairs, and you know what the vibrating bed is for. And so if you wanted to, you could just keep it as a massage table. Maybe both the parents like to go down there. I don't know, it's up to you. But I will eventually, in my save file, be replacing that with the actual massage chair. Why is it called a massage chair? No, tattoo chair. Have I been saying it wrong? Do you know what I'm on about? I know what I'm on about. Hopefully you know as well. But either way, yeah, I imagine that the dad in this household, he currently works in a restaurant. Quite, it's a standard-ish job, but his goal one day is to open up his own tattoo parlour. And maybe with the Businesses and Hobbies pack, when it comes out, maybe they can save a little bit of money every single month to eventually, maybe he can open it in his basement. No, I've just had the idea, maybe, right? Because I was thinking initially when I built it that he would just practice in his basement. Small businesses, you can have your business anywhere. I'm going to make it actually. So his business will be in his basement. And then he can just, open his little doors, be like, right, we're open. And then just any random Tom, DICK and Harry can come in and they can get their tattoo done by him. No, I love that idea even more. Imagine your Sim just moved into their little starter home. Next door, tattoo business. Fancy a tattoo? Maybe your Sims will end up getting a tattoo to kind of mark the fact that they've just got their first house. Maybe they get like a house icon, not an icon, but like a little icon of a house as their first tattoo or something. I just love that. And the thing is actually, wait, no, you can actually do that, because with the new Businesses and Tattoos, I was about to say game pack then, but with the new EP, your Sims, when you do a tattoo on them, if you want to, you can actually draw it yourself in CAS. With cats and dogs, and then also horses, and I also think werewolves off memory, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't play with werewolves. But we have like paint mode, and you can design anything on them. I've seen from the gameplay trailer that you can draw on your Sims. I'm actually a little bit worried, I'm not gonna lie, what people are going to do with that. But if your Sims wanted to, for gameplay purposes, when they move in to their little starter home and they pop next door, meet Kev and V in my save file, they could, potentially end up getting a tattoo of maybe like a little house or something. Oh, I love that idea. That's just so lovely. But anyway, sorry, regardless, moving over and actually getting on and talking about what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I basically finished up the whole entire exterior, and now I've moved on into my version of the Sims Kev and V's house. I am still going to be talking about the Sims as I decorate the house, but I'm going to try and just sprinkle some stuff here and there, because I still want to kind of tell you about what I'm doing and the reasons behind it, but then I also do kind of still want to tell you a little bit more about the storyline. One of the things that I need to tell you about is, I said that I don't imagine the mum and dad of this household to be married. I imagine that one of them is actually married to someone else. I imagine that the dad of this household, when he was younger, was a silly Billy, and he went to the Sims version of Las Vegas and he got married to someone, but that person was a little bit crazy and they left them years ago. But I imagine that this dad, right, he's quite laid. He's going to have a tattoo parlour one day in his basement. He's a laid-back kind of guy. He never bothered to sign the divorce papers, and his ex-wife, actually still kind of current wife, did a runner. Can't track her down. Can't sign the divorce papers. So in my save file, there is going to be a random sim in the world somewhere, or potentially just in the, you know, like the household bin, that will actually be married to this sim. Wife knows about it. She's got the ump about it. But I just thought that'd be really fun because I haven't done anything like that for my save file. And if you've ever seen Shameless, sorry, this might be a little bit of a spoiler, but I'm not going to lie to you, it is quite an old series. But Kev is actually married to someone else in the series, and at first, V didn't know about it, and he kind of kept it a bit of a secret because it was a similar thing. He just never bothered to sign the divorce papers. And so I'm going to make it so, yeah, his wife somewhere is in the world. I mean, maybe, thinking about it, it could be a similar situation of, like the TV series, when he first met his now, like, partner for life, because they are going to stay together, do you know what I mean? Like, they've got children, they do love each other. They're just a little bit chaotic sometimes, and they like to woohoo. But when he first met his wife, it just never came up. And so maybe they went for like their first year or two in the relationship until it did actually come up or something. Or maybe his wife found out through just gossiping with, maybe actually, you know, I said that she likes to gossip in the break room when she goes to work at the hospital. Maybe she found out through someone. Wait, no, I've just had a better idea. Maybe the wife came in one day. Maybe, actually. You know, sometimes when you go to, like, the doctors, the dentist, or the hospital, or whatever, and you have to give your name and your date of birth or something, maybe the actual wife to the dad of this household came in, and maybe it's like a really bizarre last name. Don't know what it's going to be. Give me some suggestions. I'd love you to. But maybe she's got like a really bizarre last name, and the mum of this household was like, "Huh, that's funny. My partner has that last name, or my you know, boyfriend, whatever, has that last name." And she was like, "Oh, really? Who's your partner?" She was like, "Oh, blah blah." She's like, "That's actually my legal husband." That could be really fun. That would actually be really fun. I really want to play that out. That would actually be so fun for gameplay to do it that way. But yeah, I love this idea for a storyline for one of the families that is going to live in my save file. Like I said, I imagine that both the mum and the dad, which I think I might actually just call them Kev and Veronica in my save file, just to kind of give a nice little nod to people who might have seen the series, so you kind of already know their personalities and stuff. But I just thought it'd be really nice to have sims like that in my save. And imagine as well, if you're someone that maybe downloaded my save, pretend it's not you because you've now seen this video and you kind of know the storyline, but imagine someone downloads my save file, right, they live next door, they pop over to the neighbours, which will be living here, and they're like, "Oh, hello, what's your name, blah blah blah, what do you do? Oh, how long have you been to married then?" You actually go into their relationship panel, see that they're not married. Maybe just by coincidence your sim has already met the legitimate and legal wife of the dad of this household. Imagine the confusion. Honestly, I just thought that would be a really fun idea for just storylines, and it makes it feel a little bit different, and it's definitely a storyline that I have never done before. But I like that this relationship is not so stereotypical. But from the outside, it's a lovely little, you know, 2-bed, 1-bathroom house. Couple have got twins, infants, but in reality it's just a little bit different. I just love it, absolutely love it. But either way, sorry, I have spoken over quite a lot of the furnishing, but like I said, I have had such an in-depth storyline for these sims, and the way that this house even came about, like the way that I even started it, so I literally just came in with the idea for what the sims were going to do and their personality and like all about them, and not really focused that much on the house. But then in kind of like going with that, I ended up making the house very geared towards their interest. Like I said, woohoo bed upstairs, and now, as you can see, tattoo parlour in the basement. So down here, something that I wanted to point out, it is currently on the other side of the wall, but I just thought it was really funny. You know how I said that I imagine that both of these sims are quite exotic? They love to woohoo, like they love to party, they love to go out drinking, even when they've got kids, you know, like that. It's just the type of characters they are. I purposely placed down a basement treasures kit second woohoo bed in the corner. Now my idea behind that was it's not their first rodeo. They've used that woohoo bed many times before, and I imagine that they probably used it to the point where it accidentally broke one day, and so they got a second one, but they're storing their other one in the basement. To be honest, realistically, you would just put it in the bin, but for like the storytelling purposes, I really tried to get across that these sims, the Lovestruck expansion pack was made for them. Like that is literally how out there they are in that kind of region, if you want to put it there. And so, I gave them a second woohoo bed, kind of trying to give the impression that they loved it the first time around so much they got a second one. And so the second one is actually upstairs, and like I said, I use like the leopard cheetah print version of it, which is a bed that I next to never use, but for these like Sims and kind of like the characteristics I imagine that they have, it was just the perfect bed for them. But in here as well, as you can see, I placed down some lips, which are actually just a sofa. I just thought, again, it was quite fun and quite different and a little bit exotic. Also placed down a neon sign. That neon sign is fairly new to me. We got it from, I think it was a Cozy Kitsch kit off memory. Recently we had the Comfy Gamer kit and then also the Cozy Kitsch kit. Both of them came with neon signs. I think I actually ended up using both neon signs in that basement. The smaller one I placed down by the kitchen counters. That one I'm pretty sure came from the Comfy Gamer kit. But yeah, I shot a little neon sign down there. I also placed down some Werewolves posters, which look quite, tattoo parlour-esque in a way. And then also just put like a little record player. But now moving on, as you can see, I've now moved on to the upstairs level, and I'm currently coming in and decorating the one and only bathroom. So in here, I wanted it to feel like it was a little bit outdated in a way, but it's a still very used and very loved bathroom. I can just imagine the mum in this household consistently every single day she wears makeup, she wears heavy eyeliner, she wears a lot of lipstick, and she spends a lot of time in front of this bathroom mirror applying all of her makeup. And so you'll see shortly I end up actually putting makeup inside the sink itself. This is probably a really good time to mention I have already play tested this whole entire build. I run into two problems, not with this sink. The sink is fully functional. You might notice as well in the kitchen I placed down some used coffee mugs inside the kitchen sink. Again, it is workable. I've used it so many times before. Like, your Sims can still wash their hands, get a glass of water or something. The sink, if you merge something into it, it does function. But when I was playtesting, I ran into two issues. One of them was in this house, and then the other one was in the other house, which I'm going to move on to shortly. I'll tell you about it when we get to it. But in this house, I placed down a bin underneath this one wall decoration, which, do you know what, I was a silly billy, because before I placed down this certain wall decoration that we got from the Everyday Clutter kit, and it's kind of got some keys dangling off it and also like your Sims mail, and I placed it down right by the front door, and it was where the staircase was. And I remember this one scenario for hours I felt like I was pulling my hair out because I couldn't figure out why my Sims couldn't go upstairs. In the end, it was because I placed down this one decoration right by the front door. For some reason it made the stairs pointless and like your Sims couldn't get up them. And so for a while I was really put off using this one wall decoration because it caused me so much ag and so much hassle that I didn't use it. And then when it came around to doing this build, I thought, oh, I'll pop like this nice little litter station right here by the oven. It was above the bin, and then when it came around to playtesting, again, similar situation. I was like, why can't you use the bin? And then they kept on going next door and using next door's bin. I was like, no, you've got a bin in this kitchen, use this bin, I want to make sure it's usable. In the end, it was just because it was underneath a wall decoration. I just shifted the bin to the other side of the room. Besides the point, moving over. As you can see, I've now moved on into the next room in this house, which is the infant's nursery. Now in here, I tried to get the point across that this wasn't always going to be a nursery, so I just put some posters down on the wall that kind of looked like they were a little bit ripped. I then shoved over some paintings to try and mask over where they've tried to rip off the posters, and maybe they're a little bit too stuck that they won't come off. Hopefully you can see what I mean, but basically the posters that I've used, they are from the Lovestruck expansion pack. But if you actually look at them, there is a swatch where it looks like someone's tried to take the posters off the wall. But you know, sometimes when things get stuck, or if you try and put a sticker, for example, on your bedside table when you was younger and then you grew up and then you was like, oh, actually I don't want that sticker there anymore, try to take the sticker off and it kind of left remains of it. I was imagining that this room didn't used to be a nursery. I don't know what this room used to be, but it definitely wasn't a nursery because having kids was definitely not on the cards for the Sims that live in this house. And so I was thinking, when, you know, all of a sudden, oh, I'm pregnant, we're going to have a baby or two. They probably didn't even know it was twins until delivery room. But imagine that they tried to shift this room into whatever it used to be into an infant's nursery. But then when they tried to rip off some of the posters, it kind of left some poster remains. And so it's a small detail, but I just wanted to point it out because it might seem a bit weird that I placed down some posters and then purposely covered them up. It was to, you know, just go along with the storyline in my head. But in this room, I ended up placing down 2 infant cribs. I really liked the idea of this family having, I don't know if you've ever played like The Sims 2 or The Sims 3, but we had these baby cribs that were like metal frames. I wanted that kind of image in my head for the cribs in the nursery, but we don't have any metal framed cribs in the game. We do, however, have a travel cot, and so I used 2 travel cots, and then I also placed down a changing station in that room as well, so your Sims can change these smelly infants' nappies. But now moving over, I've now moved on into the parents' bedroom, and this is the room that has the vibrating woohoo bed. So you can see that I've used it in this like leopard cheetah print swatch. I don't think I have really ever used this bed apart from when Lovestruck first came out. I built a Lovestruck penthouse apartment, and there was kind of like a woohoo room. Literally, it was a woohoo room at the top of this penthouse, and I'm pretty sure I used this bed in potentially this swatch in that room. Other than that, I do not use this bed because it's not really my own personal cup of tea. But the mum of this household, she's fiery, she's got a bit of grunt to her, and she loves this kind of thing. And so when it came around to decorating this bedroom, I knew that I had to use one of the beds from, the Lovestruck DLC. So in here, I also used 2 different curtains, but tried to layer them on top of each other. I did this also downstairs in the lounge room, and the curtains that I've used, they are from the City Living expansion pack, and the way that I was able to get both of them to kind of layer nicely without any weird clipping is I used the one that is for the short wall height, and then I sized down the one that is from the medium wall height. When you size down a medium wall height curtain, it will then just become a lot shorter, and then with that, it doesn't have the same, I want to say like dimensions pixel wise, and then that way you can kind of like merge 2 curtains in together. I just really like the look of it. It just looks very, honestly, Veronica coded. If you've ever seen Shameless, hopefully you agree with me. But I must admit, when I was decorating this room, I did pop up a reference image of what their house's bedroom looks like. I didn't try and decorate their house to look like their house in the show. It looks literally nothing like it. They've got a spiral staircase in the show. We do not unfortunately have them in The Sims 4, but I did look up a picture of their bedroom because they spend a lot of time in the show. I'm just going to say that, and I wanted to kind of see how they decorated it. And behind their bed, on like that main wall, they did have some sort of tapestry, and so in that bedroom I did a very similar thing. The tapestry that I use is just from the Jungle Adventure DLC. Honestly, we need some more tapestries in the game. I think off memory we've got 3. One from Jungle Adventure, one from Vampires, and then one from the movie Hangout Stuff pack, I think. We might have like 1 or 2 swatches of a bit of curtain from high school years, but yeah, I feel like we're really lacking them in the game. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved over to the second house, and this is the house for the Sim that I'm actually yet to tell you about. Now, I did briefly skip over the fact that this household is going to be for a single Sim, which I'm so happy that I've actually finally done a single Sim house. I must have done one before in the past, but I don't really remember. I know I've done a handful of apartments for a single Sim, but if you would like me to do some more like single Sim houses, please let me know, because I will personally get a lot of use out of this in my own personal gameplay, because sometimes it's just nice to have a single Sim household and not just have to worry about where everyone else is. And so I personally, a lot of the time, if I'm not playing with my like super Sim family, will just have like a single Sim living in an apartment or like a 1-bed house or something. But if you would like me to do some more single Sim houses, let me know, because I'm not really sure what everyone else's approach to it is. But either way, I've told you that it's a single Sim house, and I briefly mentioned that this Sim is healing, and I just kind of left it at that, and we're now here. I didn't want to talk about this Sim when I was doing next door, do you know what I mean? Because I was doing things that I wanted to kind of reference, and the reason why I placed it down. But this Sim, she is, bless her heart, she's had a bit of a hard time recently, and I just thought it would be quite nice in my save file for your Sims to have one of their potential next door neighbours, just a nice single friend. And yeah, that is this Sim. She did have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, not sure which one, but they recently broke up with her. And the idea that I had for this Sim, right, she went to university. I do make reference to this in the build, you'll see shortly. I placed down a university certificate, or like their degree, hanging on the wall. And then I also placed down things regarding the next bit, what I'm about to tell you. But she went to uni, and she fell in love with someone when she was at uni. And duration of the time that she spent studying, she was with this person, and she thought that she was going to spend the rest of her life with them, because they're in their uni years. If ever it's the time to be single, it's kind of the time to be single. But this Sim, she found love, she loved this person dearly, and she thought that they were going to be happy families. they was not happy families. Basically, they moved out, and the idea that I had was her partner then realised, hang on, I've spent a lot of my early, like, teenage years going into my early 20s in a relationship. I haven't really experienced life myself yet. I want to kind of go and do that. And the idea that I had, bless her heart, is for this sim, she bought this house with her ex-partner, and her ex-partner decided that they didn't want to do it anymore, and they did a runner and they left her here. I make a few references to this in a few different areas of the build. One of them is actually in this room. I don't know if you can see, but on the other wall I've got some bookcases, and I purposely already laid out a teddy bear of a heart that's got a little plaster on it. Honestly, it's so sad actually thinking about it. But I was thinking that maybe her ex-partner gave her that at one point in time, and I used the version of it that looks like it's got a plaster on it just because I just thought it was the cutest one. But I imagine that her partner maybe gave that to her for Love Day, maybe one year. And when they moved into this house, she moved all of her stuff out of her uni dorm. And obviously that was one of the things, that was one of her belongings. She moved into this house and she popped it onto the bookcase. And over time and throughout the duration of the breakup, she forgot it was there. You will see shortly, I end up hiding that teddy bear heart plushie in the bookcase. So you can't really see it. But if you was to move a bit of decoration, then you notice it's there. Just probably a situation of like, partner moved out, used to be on the bookshelf, maybe one of her mates came over and disguised it because they noticed it was there, but they didn't want to put it in the bin because they didn't know how she was feeling yet. So maybe like one of her mates covered it over. But yeah, you can see over here, I purposely placed it at the back. You can't really see it. It's actually kind of pointless being there because it doesn't really work as a decoration. But in my mind, it works for storytelling purposes. And then in my save file somewhere, I'm going to have her ex-partner, and she's probably going to have like all different types of hurt and negative sentiments towards them, and just, this person broke her heart, and she's still got some remains of them in her little house that she actually bought with them. Honestly, it's really sad. And I mean, you can see as well, I was talking about, I was a little bit nervous coming into doing this build because I went for quite outdated, not so much far-y wallpaper as some of the other options that we've got in the game, but a lot of older generational wallpaper. I would consider this. Like, I personally wouldn't move into a house and have this kind of paneling at the top. It might be your cup of tea, but the idea that I had is her and her partner probably got such a good deal on this house because this little old lady used to live here, probably just passed away due to old age. I don't think there was like a house fire or anything, but she passed away, and then maybe it was a case of the woman that used to live here, maybe her children just wanted to kind of get the house sold, they just kind of wanted to wash their hands of it and be done. And so maybe this sim, because I was imagining she was a uni student, and by the way, uni students do not come out of uni with money to put down on a deposit of a house, so maybe they got a really good deal on it, and their plan was to move in slowly, kind of decorate it as they get a little bit more money. They probably did put down all of their like life savings on this house, but slowly over time, put a new wallpaper up, or give it a fresh coat of paint or something like that. That was the initial plan. But then since then, I imagine they probably moved in, and maybe like 6 months in, 7 months in, something around that kind of benchmark, that's when the partner decided, oh, hang on, I'm actually getting a little bit worried here. I'm getting like, shaky feet. And so that's when they decided, actually, I can't do this anymore, and they moved out. And then maybe she was so sad that she just didn't want to even think about decorating a house that she was once going to think about potentially having a family in, and that's why it's a 2-bed, and that's why now the second bedroom is actually just a little hobby room. Love that hobby room, by the way. I'm very excited to move over to that. But yeah, that was kind of like the idea that I had for kind of like the house itself, and the reason why it's decorated so older style, because you can see some of the different furniture pieces that I've placed in, some of the stuff that you can physically move into a house, so like sofas, bookcases, coffee tables, dining room tables, all them kind of things, they're quite younger looking, whereas the main structure pieces of the house, so like the wallpaper, the flooring, the kitchen counters, what ends up being in the bathroom, they are quite older style decorated. I just tried to give it a little bit of almost like lore, honestly, to the house itself. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I'm currently coming in and decorating the kitchen. Now, even though I did try and decorate, like I said, the structure pieces of this house, like the main core components, to be quite older style, I actually really like this wallpaper, and I actually would have this wallpaper in a potential future kitchen. It's checkable and it's quite leery, but I feel like even though I imagine it was the old lady's kitchen wallpaper, it actually does still work for the younger generation. But over here as well, as you can see, I placed down this cozy bistro It's almost like a shelving unit. We got it to kind of go behind bars in the game, potentially pop into a restaurant or something. But I was thinking it looked quite nice as some sort of potential like coffee station situation. I see sometimes on TikTok people have like coffee bars in their kitchen or like a hot chocolate station. Love to do that myself. I ain't got the space for it. So I'm gonna do it in The Sims because I unfortunately cannot do that in my kitchen. But for this sim, I imagine that she loves books, she loves painting. Again, I kind of make reference to this throughout different areas of the house, but mainly in the hobby room upstairs. But I also imagine she just loves a cup of coffee, and so she's a proper little cozy girl. She likes to, you know, curl up on a Friday or a Saturday night. Instead of going out with her mates, she just likes to read a book and have a nice cup of coffee. And so, you know, I made up a little coffee pretend station for her. I did also place down a coffee machine, so, you know, she can actually make herself a cup of coffee if she wants to. But yeah, I just thought it was a quite nice addition to this kitchen. But something else that I did in this kitchen, which don't know why I don't do this more often, I placed down this like shelving unit in between the kitchen cabinets and like the counter. Say shelving unit, your Sims can't actually put anything on that shelf. It's a decoration to make it look like they can, but it comes pre-cluttered. It's got like a little sailboat and then also some sort of like decorative plate on it. But I found that if you merge it into the kitchen counter underneath a kitchen cabinet, fits perfectly. Like you don't have to shimmy it about or anything. It just, there's no clip in it and it kind of looks almost built in a way. But also in this room as well, it is where the dining room table is, and something over here is what I wanted to speak about. You can see that I just placed down some presents, and now I'm purposely covering them up with a little photo frame. Basically, this was another idea that I had that kind of referenced that this sim potentially used to be in a relationship. I basically just had this idea that at one point in time, she bought her partner just a nice present, not for any occasion, just like a nice little friendly gift to say, you know, I like you. But then her partner, you know, did a runner, and it's just kind of sitting underneath the dining room table. But I covered it over with a poster, thinking that she probably has forgotten that it's there, and that's one of the posters that she's still yet to put up in the house. Again, kind of similar to the teddy bear that I merged into the bookcase. I ended up pretty much disguising. It is a little bit silly because even though it is a decoration, I did just completely cover it up to make it look like it's not there. But for the storytelling purposes, you know, maybe one day you want to renovate this house for her and then you get to discover that, oh, actually, she has things from her previous relationship. I just thought it was like a nice little addition to her storyline. It made sense in my mind. So, yeah, pop down some little presents underneath the dining room table. Also, the dining room table, by the way, that is from the Cozy Kitchen kit, and this is my first time, I believe, using it since that kit came out. Came out end of last year, I believe, but I just hadn't done a build using it yet, and this was basically my first time around using it. And something that I did want to mention, surprisingly enough, I know we've moved over, but all of the chairs around that dining room table, despite two of them being very close to the wall, somehow works. Like I said, I've playtested this whole entire build. I've run into two problems, one in next door's house and one in this house, which that wasn't the problem. The problem's upstairs. But yeah, it really surprised me when it came around to playtesting that my sim could sit on every single seat. I was only really expecting them to sit on the two seats, but bit of an extra bonus either way over here, as you can see. I'm actually just pretty much finishing up the little downstairs half bathroom / laundry space. I completely forgot to mention up until this point, because I've just finished up doing like a little litter box situation in the utility room, but I do imagine that this sim does have a cat. I did also place down like a cat scratching post in the lounge room. I know I placed down a food bowl in the kitchen. There is a litter box in the utility room, and then there does end up being a cat bed in the home office as well, but I just completely skipped over it. But yeah, I do imagine that she does live here with a cat. I was personally picturing an older cat, and I was thinking that she probably adopted it from a shelter or something, and it's a very tame cat, very cuddly, and yeah, just likes to sleep all day. And so sometimes she'll be sitting in a little hobby room, which is the room that I've moved over to. I absolutely love this room. It's just so cozy and comfy, and I'd love to have this room myself. Honestly, I'd even take the old farty wallpaper. This room is so cozy, but I imagine that the cat spends a lot of her time at just sleeping next to her while she's on her desk. But in here, as you can see, I placed down the computer desk that we got from the Comfy Gamer kit in this really lovely swatch with kind of like a dark wood colour. Now, I love this desk, and it is my new favourite desk that we got in The Sims 4. However, I am a bit biased because that is pretty much my desk that I've got in real life. Like, I've literally got almost the exact same desk. The only difference is my wood tabletop is a little bit of a lighter wood in comparison to that one. But I went for this one because the darker wood colour top kind of matched with the panelling on the wallpaper. But also in this room as well, we've got a bookcase in the corner, a nice little art easel situation, and then next to the art easel, we've got this little cart that's got all these different paint brushes and paint tubes, and also what I was imagining would be a cup of coffee or maybe potentially a cup of tea. Over here though, what I'm doing right now, this is the second problem that I run into with playtesting. So this little like blanket situation that I'm trying to make merge into the armchair, unfortunately, if you do download this build off the gallery, it won't come with it, just because my Sims were being weird and they wouldn't sit down on this armchair. I know I did merge in this little armchair into the armchair to make it, you know, look like there was a blanket, but I'm pretty sure I've done this before in the past and my Sims have been able to interact with it. This time round, my playtester Sim, she would not sit down. She was waving her hands up in the air. She was saying, I can't sit down there. I deleted it and then she could sit down there. So unfortunately, I did have to delete that little pretend blanket, but I loved it because it just looked so cozy. And like I said, for this room, I was thinking that maybe when they bought this house, her and her ex-partner, they were thinking lovely potential nursery one day. Partner moved out, she's now a single girl, she lives here with her cat, she likes books and she also likes artwork, and so she was like, sod it, I'm gonna make a little hobby room because I can, I've got a space for it. And so yeah, I wanted there to be like loads of cozy little candles and loads of little just decorations that make it feel so homey in here. And I loved the idea of having a blanket kind of like draped over the armchair. In this case, I draped it inside of the cushion because I didn't really have that many options to do this, but I tried my luck at trying to make it work. And like I said, I'm pretty sure I've done it before in the past and my Sims have been able to interact with it, but yeah, unfortunately this time round it was unusable, and I didn't want to keep it in the build if, you know, it don't work, because what's the point? Do you know what I mean? Either way, moving over. As you can see, I've now moved on into the next room, which is the main bathroom. Now there is that little half bathroom downstairs, which is kind of like part utility room. If you wanted the extra space and maybe one day you wanted to transform the hobby room into a potential bedroom, you could definitely just make it so the downstairs bathroom also has a bathtub, because this, even though it is the main bathroom, is technically an ensuite to the bedroom of this house. But I mean, for the idea that I've got for the Sim that lives here, she's not bothered. Like, she's not going to be fighting over who's using the shower first when it comes around to the moment. That's actually really sad, isn't it, when you think about it? But yeah, she's a single girl and she doesn't need to have a bathroom for more than anyone but her. And so yeah, I didn't think it was the worst thing. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the last room of this house, which is her bedroom. So in here, I went for this bed that we got from the Get Together expansion pack, and then for a while I really struggled on what to put behind like her bed frame. I was struggling with artwork, and at one point I was going to use these paintings, but then I remembered that I used them downstairs in the kitchen. And I mean, to be fair, I could have used them because the ones that I used in the kitchen were a different colour swatch, but in the end I end up placing down, it's meant to be something that you kind of put behind a piece of artwork if you're trying to paint it. I'm not sure what the technical term is. I would just call it a blanket pinned up, but there is probably an actual name for it. But you know, sometimes when people try and use something and they want to use it as a reference when they're painting or taking a photo, you'll have some sort of like background area. It's basically a background that we got from the artist studio kit, and the idea is you're meant to put some sort of decoration in front of it, and then your Sims are meant to paint it from reference. I actually just used it as kind of like a backing headboard. And I mean, it sounds silly, but in my defense, it does actually work, because ironically, the swatches of it match this wallpaper perfectly. This old farty looking wallpaper kind of matches with it nicely. And so where it is similar colours, it just added more like texture, or it just gave the build a little bit of an oomph. Do you know what I mean? Like, instead of having a painting and like having distracting artwork, there is still something there, but it's not too distracting because it blends in with the wallpaper. Hope you get what I mean. But either way, I'm pretty much just going to go around this room and finish it off with some final touches. I do end up placing down a second chest of drawers, because I placed down a wardrobe in the corner in like a little one tile space, but I sized it down. Wasn't sure if it was going to be usable, so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to place down a second, you know, changing station just in case. But when it came around to playtesting, the wardrobe that I sized down in that little one tile space, yeah, no, your Sims can change their outfits there. But other than that, I'm going to go around and make some final adjustments and add in some final details, and that is pretty much it. So anyway, guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or you can just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content, then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys.